I'm Leo Walter for Kit Guru, and this gaming PC here is from awd-it and is called Wraith, named as it happens after the AMD cooler on the AMD processor inside, which makes it unusual because, let's face it, it's usually wall-to-wall Intel around these parts. I'm just going to start Gears of War 4 benchmark running. Now, although this display is a 4K panel, it's set to 1080 because the graphics card in this is GTX 1050 Ti, so running at 4K will be a little bit silly. So while that chugs along, I'll just rattle through the components in this PC, and then once we've seen what it can do, I'll give you a closer look inside. So the case is from Aerocool, it's from their Project 7 range, it's called C1. I am separately doing a review of this case with my own build inside it. A very subtly different version of the case. This has the glass window on it, some interior lighting. The case they sent me to review has an acrylic window, no interior lighting. But other than that, the same case. Motherboard, Gigabyte 990X SLI gaming motherboards, a 990X chipset. Processor is an AMD FX-6350, which is 3.9 GHz turbo into 4.2 GHz. That's got 6 cores, obviously being AMD, there's no hyper-threading, so 6 straight cores. It's quite a juicy beast, 125 watts of TDP, and if you hear some roaring going on constantly, good benchmarks running, that's because this thing has fans at the front and fan at the rear, and it makes quite a constant noise. Keeping on going, so that FX-6350 has a Wraith cooler. Now, despite the fact it's given the PC its name, this has a question mark over it for me because the Wraith, as stock processor coolers go, is pretty darn tooting, but realistically, if you're building a PC, it doesn't cost an OEM like awd-it a great deal of money to buy a cooler in from someone like Cooler Master, and you generally get considerably better performance at less noise, so we shall see about that. We've got some memory from Team, 8 GB DDR3 1600. Remember, AMD still uses DDR3 till Zen comes along when we assume it's going to have DDR4. Graphics card, Gigabyte GTX 1050 Ti, obviously 4 GB because they all are, and it's an OC edition. And then when you buy a PC from awd-it, you get to configure it as you do with all PC builders. The default for this system is a 1 TB hard drive. This has, and this will be linked on Kit Guru, a 250 GB Samsung Evo 750 SSD, which obviously helps performance and snap quite a great deal. It's a good thing. I did note when I was reviewing this PC, I load up a bunch of games on Steam, and I had to delete GTA 5, I think it was, before I could put Gears of War on. Gears of War is enormous, 70-80 GB in size, and GTA 5 is over 50 GB. So in this day and age, a handful of games takes up a colossal amount of space. I think this PC realistically is a gaming PC, so you're either going to need more storage or an external drive because 250 gig SSD is just a starting point. Power supply is an EVGA 500 watt, and it's all topped off with Windows 10 Home. So a perfectly sound PC, perfectly reasonable spec. Pricing, $699 VAT. When I configured this PC, so £700, and that's delivered to the customer. When I went through the configurator, I actually got a figure of $795. I'm assured 700 is the correct figure. So there we go. So as PCs go, relatively cheap, but nonetheless, we're still talking money. On the other hand, you could argue this PC stands you the same cash as a GTX 1080 graphics card on its own. So in that respect, it's pretty blooming cheap. How are we doing it? And good, we finished. Right, I'm going to shut this down then and pull you in closer. When I finished running Gears of War 4, it suddenly occurred to me that the result of the benchmark is shown on the far right-hand side of the screen, which is just off camera. So the fact is that it averages 50 frames per second. That's on ultra settings at 1080. So as a gaming PC, this is absolutely sound. Going through various other things, Deus Ex, which is horribly hard on games, as games go rather, on ultra 27 frames a second, so you need to come down on settings there. GTA 5, with everything cranked up to the max, 49. Ashes of the Singularity was slightly quirky. On high, that was 34 frames a second. It would not run at our preferred crazy settings, wouldn't have it. Crashed out repeatedly. And Rise of Tomb Raider on high settings, 57 frames per second on average. So this is a proper gaming PC at 1080. If you want to go higher than 1080, 1440, whatever, you're going to have to pull your settings back, but that's just such is life. Once you take off the glass panel, which is a solid piece of tinted glass, 4 holes and rubber mounts at the corners. You can see more clearly what's going on inside, and it's exactly as you'd expect. It's a neat and tidy PC built by professional people, and it's perfectly sound. The constant noise, I must confess, does aggravate me slightly. The case, it's an interesting case, this, and as I say, I am reviewing it separately. The case has a couple of features built in this Aerocool C1. It's got the built-in lighting, as you see, so actually, although it's set to red, which obviously is a theme that AWIT has decided to go for with this PC, so the front and the innards are both red. You can actually toggle through 8 different colours on the top, exactly as different blues and purples and orange and green and such like, or indeed you can have a lighting off, or you can go through a cycle where it just repeats. And there's also a mode button, breathing, pulse, and they call it a breathing, pulse, and which is like a heart, in other words, so that's like flashy sort of thing, or a steady state. So nothing too unexpected, but you can have a bit of variety if you want. You're not set on red if you don't want to be. And if we pull off the back panel, which is just a really plain back panel, no noise deadening material whatsoever, which is part of the reason why it's relatively noisy, and we spin it around, and there you go, very, very neatly built. So quite admirable. The SSD is there, and that up there is a PWM hub, and you can see it's got a little blue light glowing. It's interesting in that hub has 3 modes. You can either set it to PWM mode, you can set it to run at 60%, or set it to run at 100%. If it's connected to the motherboard in PWM mode, then obviously the motherboard is controlling it 60 and 100, 60% at full speed, 100% at full speed. This was delivered, as far as I could see, running at 100%. It may be worth your while doing a little bit of investigation as to which setting suits you. I've cranked it down to 60% because that seems perfectly adequate to me. PWM would be the logical choice, might require a bit of involvement. Were this my own build, I would certainly do that, as it's a PC review. Doesn't really seem entirely right and proper. The reason I said you might want to investigate is, as you will see on the page, that AWIT is giving this PC away as a competition prize to KitGuru readers. I'm not quite sure what the competition will be. I guess it's an email to win it job. So you may well get the opportunity of investigating the inner settings of this PC, which is jolly nice. My concern about the processor cooler. This system, when it's idling, draws 85 watts on the desktop, 175 watts in 3D Mark, and 255 watts in Ashes of the Singularity. Curious enough, that was actually higher than when it's running AD64, which is the stress test, stressing both the CPU and GPU. It's 225 watts, which I don't get. Ashes should not be pulling more power than Ada. Nonetheless, let's split the difference, call it 250 watts. It's a 500 watt power supply, 250 watts under load. Great. And therefore, the fans at the front and the fan at the rear are passing air, and that cooler's working its socks off, you would think, and that's all fine. So temperatures. Now, temperatures of AMD are a little bit awkward because the monitoring software, it always comes up with curious numbers that sort of suggest it's running below ambient temperature, which is impossible. There's an offset you have to add, and it's typically 15 degrees, but that seems to vary slightly from model to model. It's more complicated than Intel. So the fact that the software claims the CPU idles at 19 degrees is a sort of a detail, because it's probably about 34 degrees. The fact that the software says it runs at 38 degrees under load is certainly a lie. Let's call that then 53 degrees. What is for sure is that under load it is 19 degrees hotter than it is idling. That is significant. In other words, it's not a massive difference. GPU, GTX 1050i with all the TI with all this space, it idles at 28, it goes to 57 under full load. I mean, that's just nothing. So my guess is if you add on 15 degrees, maybe even 20 to that CPU temperature, call it mid-50s. The CPU and the GPU, they're running at mid-50s. In other words, it's as cool as anything, which actually I think means you could crank back on the cooling somewhat, make it quieter, and it would be a perfectly sound thing. So, as a PC, I must confess my expectations were not high with the Wraith. I saw the air cooler, I saw the words AMD, I thought, Gaming results are perfectly sound. My one bugbear is the noise levels, which I'm sure can be dealt with. The fact is that the case does nothing to keep noise levels down. Flows a lot of air, it is relatively noisy. Performance is perfectly sound, and for the money, it's actually really quite impressive. And don't forget, visit KitGuru, you can win this PC. Hurrah! If you like this video, thumbs up. If you don't, thumbs down. If you want more videos from Kit Guru, click to subscribe. I'm Leo Ward for Kit Guru. This is AWIT Wraith.